Hello and welcome to another standard video. Today we're checking out this mostly mono-blue prowess deck. This is a pretty aggressive deck with lots of cheap threats that care about casting lots of non-creature spells. One of the main build-arounds being the Drake Hatcher, which I haven't really featured on the channel before. A 2-mana 1/3 with Vigilance and Prowess, saying whenever it deals combat damage to a player, we get to put that many incubation counters on it, and we can then remove 3 of those counters at any point to make a 2/2 flying Drake token. So the Drake Hatcher wants to be paired with lots of cheap cantrips that can trigger prowess, especially when those cantrips also make our creature unblockable until end of turn. We've got Enter the Enigma and the slightly upgraded Pim Particles, although of course the Drake Hatcher already has Vigilance, so it doesn't really care about it, but we have some other creatures where the Vigilance could matter. But yeah, these are great ways to pump up the Drake Hatcher, make sure it connects so we can start making Drake tokens. And then we also have the full set of the Planisphere as an equipment that will still trigger prowess on any creatures we have in play as a non-creature spell, and then comes attached to a 1/1 hero token. And then now whenever we cast a non-creature spell, that equipped creature will pick up a +1/+1 counter. We also have the classic combo with Stormchaser's Talent plus Boomerang Basics, the Talent also triggering Prowess, making a 1/1 Otter token with Prowess, and then we can maybe bounce the enchantment for 1 mana, draw a card with the Basics as well, and then we can maybe even replay the Talent on that very same turn to trigger Prowess again and make another Otter token, so that can get out of hand very quickly. And then the slightly less broken 1 mana Otter card. The elusive Otter can also maybe use its adventure thanks to the green splash from the Willow Rush Verge, and it's also slightly harder to block than a regular Otter token. So these are all the win conditions, and then besides our unblockable cantrips, we also have Opt to scry 1 and draw a card at instant speed, and then the secret identities, how we can protect our creatures from instant speed removal. We can use the first mode, Conceal, to turn a creature into base power and toughness 1/1 and hexproof until end of turn. Important here is that all our prowess creatures have 1 power to start out, so turning them into base power and toughness 1/1 is not really gonna mitigate the amount of damage we deal. And instead, if we use the second mode to turn our creature into base power and toughness 3/4 and gain flying and vigilance until end of turn, we can actually use this as a pseudo pump spell, especially when paired on a Drake Hatcher. Making it base power and toughness 3/4 makes it a lot easier to start making Drake tokens, since all the prowess triggers will then also stack on top of it. So just casting the second mode from Secret Identity and any other non-creature spell can already get our Drake Hatcher up to 6 power, so we can ensure 2 Drake tokens in a single attack. And finally, we also have a full set of Into the Floodmaw as another cheap bounce spell to interact with the opponent's permanents. The advantage over Boomerang Basics is that this can actually bounce an Earthbended land, unlike the Sorcery Speed bounce spell, which specifically says non-land permanent. Floodmaw can still bounce regular creatures as well, and this is also an instant, which can also have its advantages. And then the mana base has 4 Willow Rush Verge as the only green mana to help us cast the adventure from Elusive Otter, which doesn't happen very often, so I didn't feel the need to play the Sanctum or any shock lands that might hurt us, since we're rarely going to need the green mana, but the Verge is pretty much no downside, so may as well. So yeah, that's our deck. Now let's jump into some games and see how the deck does. Okay, we're on the play. We've got Talent, Boomerang Basics, double Planisphere, so a lot of threats. No real interaction outside of the Boomerang Basics, which we'd also rather use on the Talent anyway. But yeah, double Planisphere could do some damage. So looking for more cantrips, maybe an extra land. Opponent with a Pollinator, so some kind of Badger Mole deck. Being on the play certainly helps. So then next turn we can maybe look into the Planisphere, plus a Boomerang Basics. Opponent actually with a second Badger Mole. Well, we could just be dead next turn then. So Boomerang Basics cannot bounce land, sadly, so it cannot bounce the Earthbended land. Bouncing the Badger Mole itself is an option. It's not a super appealing one, but maybe that's what keeps me alive if they have a Craterhoof Behemoth in hand. So we'll just bounce the Badger Mole. Attack. And then next turn, got a few more cantrips to hopefully get more damage in. So they could technically cast a Crater Hoof here, but then most of their creatures would have been tapped. Opponent just unloading with recruits and another pollinator. And they're gonna hit the brakes. Okay, so particles on the biggest token, and then yeah, we'll see what we can draw. Something like a Secret Identity wouldn't be bad to fly over, and there it is. So then I could have 2 evasive creatures. It's not quite gonna be lethal just yet. Another talent does trigger all my stuff. So if I go for Secret Identity, then this would hit for 7, this hits for 6, so never mind, I guess we actually have lethal already with a Secret Identity. Since we have a bunch more +1 counters incoming. So yeah, we even have some damage to spare. Alright, sweet, on to the next one. Okay, we're on the play. We have double Elusive Otter, and no Stormchaser's talent to go with boomerang basics, but we can always bounce an opposing creature, of course. So, yeah, I think we give this a try. Don't really want to draw more lanes, just want more cantrips, maybe an extra threat. And especially a talent here could go nicely with the boomerang basics. Opponent with a tapped Restless Vent, so it could be a Reanimator deck. Hoping they do not have Pyroclasm. It's gonna be Saheeli's Lattice, so indeed Dinosaur Reanimator. And yeah, with their best draw, they could win on turn 3, and they've got the setup for it with Galta in the graveyard. So if I bounce the Lattice, I can actually prevent them from using the Vision. So that might be the play. But we'll see what we draw first. Secret Identity is not bad. So yeah, we're not gonna have lethal this turn, but I don't mind the basics, just to buy myself one more turn. And then without the Foggy Swamp Vision, they can't combo next turn. And then with Secret Identity, we should have just enough for lethal next turn. Alright, opponent had a bitter triumph discarding the Moxite. So then I could go for Secret Identity. I will be 1 short, but that does prevent them from tapping Starting Town for colored mana. So that's something. Although they could still have a 4-mana Zombify to bring back Galta, and then if they have some haste dinosaurs, they could still win from there. But nope, looks like the Otters are gonna go the distance. Sweet, on to the next one. Okay, we're on the draw with a keepable hand. Got the talent with double boomerang basics, so we can make a lot of Otter tokens. Make that 3 copies now. Facing blue-red, could be prowess, could be control. And a Price of Freedom, so opponents on the land destruction build. Got plenty of basics, so not too worried. But they will also have Avengers Disassemble to wipe the board. So that can deal with a bunch of Otter tokens. And yep, there's the sweeper, as we suspected. Okay, I mean, I can run it back. Could also play the Drake Hatcher. Could now play double talents. The Drake Hatcher at 3 toughness can maybe survive a burst lightning. Still not exactly sure what the rest of their deck looks like. If they're on the Jeskai builds with Fin Fang Foom and Jeskai Revelation, looks like it. It's their opponent with a stock up. So yeah, next turn, thanks to the tablet, they could already cast a Revelation. So I may want to bounce the tablet with Into the Floodmaw, just to set them back on tempo a little bit. In which case, could still Boomerang Basics the Talents, could also just go Drake Hatcher, and then still Floodmaw tablet. Drake Hatcher would be better if we can also keep up Secret Identity to protect it. A Sweeper's going to be somewhat painful regardless. Yeah, maybe I'll still Boomerang here, in the hopes of hitting an extra land drop, which we found. So then I'm still flooding the tablets. I think I try the Drake Hatcher, since it's probably my last chance to get it going. But yeah, another Avengers Disassembled is going to be a blowout. They could even play the tablet first and then still cast it. They found a stock up. Okay, so no Avengers Disassembled. Means that I could present lethal next turn. So a couple ways we can go about it. Maybe start with Enter the Enigma. See if there's a response. Particles can target another otter. Could give another one of them flying. Small chance they have any road, so I could also keep this available. And then, let's see. I guess I would need to opt into a land and then still cast a 1-drop. And yeah, opponent has seen enough. Awesome, on to the next one. Okay, we're on the play. We have triple Boomerang Basics, but no talent. Just an elusive otter, so it's not the most exciting hand. Think we mulligan. Okay, this one is threat dense, could use more cantrips. 1 Drake Hatcher can go. And our opponent's starting off with Quicksilver, so some sort of red aggro deck. At least a Hatcher at 3 toughness is more likely to survive a burst lightning. But yeah, the Start Your Engines mechanic is particularly powerful with Quicksilver, since you can get your speed up a lot faster. We'll start with a Drake Hatcher, hope it survives. Opponent did have a Lightning Strike. Oh, can try again next turn. And then save the cantrips to make unblockable. Opponent now with a Slick Shot. And a Shock going face. So our opponent's got max speed, giving Bastronaut double strike. Okay, so this is finally our turn to get some drakes going with a Drake Hatcher. Drake Hatcher already has Vigilance, so can use Enter the Enigma instead of the Particles. A bounce spell would have been nice. Now I'm probably going for the Otter. And then the Drake here can potentially block a Slick Shot, since we can make it at instant speed. But yeah, if they have another Shock or Burst Lightning, they could still present lethal. Opponent does go to attackers. So at the very least, the Bastronaut can be pumped twice, so that's 6 damage in and of itself, not counting any pump spells. So blocking is going to be rough. Could try a triple block, and then what happens? They pump, and then just take the trade for token and otter. or they can pump twice. Yeah, I mean, either way, I try to trade for slick shots. And they might have a response. Opponent did have a burst lightning left over. So they can only pump Batronaut once. I'm hoping it's with the ability and not with a different pump spell. Is there a reason to only double block? Yeah, maybe double block makes more sense. So then I only lose one of the two creatures. And they can decide which one. And yeah, probably going for the Drake Hatcher, since I don't want Slickshot getting blocked by another Drake. Although we found into the Floodmaw, so that helps. So now Particles for Vigilance is helpful. And a Talent. So we can get a pretty big attack in, still have Floodmaw for the Slick Shots. And hope for the best. Alright, Quicksilver is going to power up. So +1 counter and double strike. But yeah, this Floodmaw bouncing Slick Shots can still then eat Quicksilver with a hero token. And now Boomerang Basics should seal the deal. So yeah, very close one here against Mono Red aggro. They had some good answers early on. But yeah, we still managed to come out on top. On to the next one. Okay, we're on the draw. This hand is missing a threat. I do have a double opt to maybe find one, but I would rather have one starting out. Okay, this hand has a couple threats. And then, what do we ship? Probably one land. Put on the green-white. So now that we have the basics to go with the talent, does it change my sequencing? I think I still want to get an elusive otter in play first. Since this one does not trigger prowess on a creature that's in play. Opponent does have the Bantermole Cub, however. So into the Floodmaw to bounce the land seems like the play, as opposed to doing much else. So then I can play another otter, since I don't see myself using the adventure anytime soon. Can attack. I would be happy to trade the otter for a Bantermole. Opponent actually accepts. Reconsiders. So we'll bounce the land, setting them back on 2 mana. And then next turn we can maybe talent, bounce with a basics, replay it. And Bantermole gets in for 2. Alright, let's start here. Opponent might be holding any road to answer one otter, although extra mana will come in handy for leveling up the Stormchaser's talent. And there's no real way I get punished for just making another otter token here, so that's better than going for opt. And yeah, there's the erode. Still hit you for 4. And our opponent still only has 3 mana to work with. We just want to find more cantrips to trigger prowess. Alright, practice defense. Can go for lifelink. Gain 3. Not the end of the world. Alright, so could level up the talent and then bounce with Boomerang Basics. Opt maybe still has a little bit more upside. Definitely don't need the land. And now enter the Enigma. So if Enigma finds another cantrip, that may be beneficial. But this is not a turn where I need the unblockable effect. If they give their cub lifelink again, I'm okay with that. So maybe it is level up talent now, get the boomerang basics, just to be more mana efficient. And then next turn we can cast a bunch of cheap spells for prowess. So we'll see what our opponent can come up with. Tapped Temple Garden, and Lanor Elves is fine. And Practice Defense, probably for a lifelink again. So our opponent's at 13. That is a realistic number for us to get to here. Can opt first. Say no to the island. Draw one anyway. Enigma on an otter, since the elusive otter is already unblockable. And now a Drake Hatcher. So our opponent's going to be forced to chump with elves, and they're still going to take 10. And we have 2 blockers back. So yeah, had we drawn another cantrip or 2, this could have been lethal. But still liking my position. Maybe if they have another Practice Defense, they could do some damage. But yeah, it's just going to be a Leatherhead. And I can easily take 4. And we should have them on the way back. Can level up talent, get the basics, bounce the talent, replay it. And that's at least 2 more prowess triggers. On to the next one. Okay, we're on the play. We have a threat-dense hand with talent, double planisphere. On the play, of course, helps out with being the aggressor. And then turn 2 planisphere. And with the land, maybe turn 3 planisphere into another talent. And now Boomerang Basics is excellent with a talent as well. So we are not going to run out of ways to spend our mana in the near future. Our opponent a red-black. And they abrade the planisphere itself. Fair enough. So that's a decent answer, but we'll still be left with a 1/1 token. Hoping there's no board wipe. And then next turn we can deal a ton of damage. Opponent taps out for stock up, that's fine. So 14 damage should be feasible. Especially with another Boomerang Basics. I'll prioritize another Basics. And then probably the opt to see if we can draw land. Which we did. Alright, so then it should be game over here. Also just replaying the talent could work. And there we go, on to the next one. Okay, we're on the play with a keepable hand. Otter into Planisphere, a couple cantrips to make unblockable. Opponent off with a starting town and their own talent, so it could be a blue-red build. Okay, bouncing their token is also an option, but I'll still play the Planisphere first. Yeah, that double starting town is going to cost them some life. And now Ancestral Anger. And an opt. Okay, so they're not adding to the board, so if I answer the Otter, their only threat has been dealt with. And we get to grow our hero token in the process. Can still enter the Enigma, since I don't really need the Vigilance this turn. Find another one. And an opt. Yeah, I'm fine bouncing the Otter, I think. So our opponent's down to 6. And they did find a Spire Bluff to cast a painless Sleight of Hand. And their own basics to bounce my token, so if they also answer the Otter, we could be in trouble. Now basics can also bounce the Planisphere and replay it. Alternatively, I can equip the Planisphere and then grow the Otter that's in play. If I equip and then cast 2 cantrips, I could have lethal. Small chance they have like a Burst Lightning as interaction. And then unless I opt into another instance, I'm not going to be able to save the Otter. So then basics, a Planisphere would be a little bit safer in a way, so I don't end up wasting my entire turn. So prowess resolves, so then it doesn't look like they have a Burst Lightning in hand, and yeah, opponent scoops it up. On to the next one. Okay, we're on the play. My hand is functional, not amazing. Planisphere is still something we can bounce with the Boomerang basics if our opponent doesn't have anything worth removing. And then, while not as good as bouncing Stormchaser's Talent, it's still a way to make a bunch of extra 1/1s. Opponent Jeskai control, presumably. Now a Drake Hatcher is a bit more exciting. So, yeah, I can cast a Hatcher if they try and counter it. I may end up bouncing the Planisphere right now. Yep. Although if I bounce the Planisphere and they counter it on the way down, I get punished. Going for Particles feels kind of mediocre. But maybe I'll find a Stormchaser's Talent and then the Boomerang basics gets a lot more exciting. Helix as a token, so now bouncing the Planisphere is more appealing. Did also find another Hatcher. So could play the Hatcher and then just keep up Secret Identity. I think I still need to make a bit of progress, so either bounce the Planisphere or play an Otter. Playing Otter may be the weakest in the face of a Sweeper, but I'll try it here. Keeping up Secret Identity is a little safer. But we need to get the ball rolling, since the late game is heavily going to favor our opponents. Alright, we did get to untap. So now we've got a couple options, including equipping the Planisphere. I think I just enter the Enigma. And then if I target the Hatcher and they go for another Lightning Helix, that may play out a bit better. Although if they had a Helix, presumably they would have cast it in their own turn. It's a Get Lost, so then I have to go for the Hexproof mode as opposed to 3-4. And draw another Hatcher. And bounce the Planisphere. Hit for 8 and get 3 tokens on the Hatcher. So we can make a Drake at instant speed. Opponent's gonna stock up. And they once again have 2 mana up. Find another Floodmaw, which is not great in this matchup. There's not too many things we can bounce. But yeah, Planisphere still triggers the Hatcher. Can maybe bounce it again with the basics. Feels more relevant than just playing another Hatcher and not triggering anything. Okay, so I've got a few backup threats in case of a board wipe. Can make another Drake token end of turn. But presumably they have an answer here. It's gonna be Flashback Helix. Okay, that's not the end of the world. Make a Drake in response. Opponent up to 8. And they might have 3 steps ahead in hands to counter something. But yeah, just casting the Planisphere still triggers prowess, which would be enough. And yeah, that'll do it. Sweet, on to the next one. Okay, we're on the play with a keepable hand. Hatcher plays well with Secret Identity, especially if we can use the second mode. And then double Planisphere as more threats. Gonna try and save the opt to trigger Planisphere. And then Hatcher first makes some amount of sense. I certainly wouldn't mind drawing a third land on curve. Opponent with an authority actually, so can be pretty annoying against us, but it's mostly a sign that our opponent might be on the artifact deck, which is not a good matchup for us, since the Star Cage can pretty much decimate our entire board. So that's the main thing I'm worried about. Hatcher's now also tapped, so they could get it with a Saw Blades, whereas normally it has Vigilance. Floodmaw could be useful. So yeah, I guess Planisphere, see what happens. Sadly didn't find a land to cast another 1-drop. So I won't be able to make a Drake either. But we're making some progress. And yeah, for more Revolt certainly points towards artifacts. But they're first gonna deploy a Synthesizer. So ideally I draw land, I get to play Planisphere and then keep up Floodmaw, so that if they Star Cage me, I can still bounce the Star Cage. And get all my 2-drops back. And I can do that end of turn, so my creatures can attack right away. So there's a Star Cage, so then I should bounce it before it exiles anything, so I get to keep my counters. They will get a tapped fish and a construct. But I get to make a tapped Drake. And now Secret Identity. So with a double Secret Identity I could fly 2 of my creatures. Let's see what Opt has to say. Boomerang Basics. Could be a way of bouncing the opponent's token. So I think we're just committing and hope the math works out. Go for a 3/4 flyer, doesn't matter too much which creature I target. I guess the Hatcher makes the most sense, since that would let me make the most Drakes afterwards. But yeah, that's lethal, and then get 6 more counters, could make 2 more Drakes. But of course with them replaying the Star Cage, my board would get swept. So yeah, gotta make it count while you have a bit of a board presence against the artifact deck. But yeah, this is a pretty poor matchup, so we were pretty lucky that it lined up. On to the next one. Alright, we're on the play. We have a 1-lander with an Opt. If I hit a second land, the hand's not bad. So I'll give it a shot. Alright, that's a land. Suppose I could have waited. Maybe if they played turn 1 Llanowar Elves, I would have been still compelled to bounce it. But yeah, against Mono Red, Drake Hatcher first has the most upside. If they don't have double Burst Lightning or a Lightning Strike, we maybe get to snowball some Drake tokens. It's going to be a Hexing Squelcher. Okay, that's fine. Lines up reasonably well against my double into the Floodmaw, but I wouldn't be countering anything. So this turn Planisphere into Particles, so we immediately get to make a Drake. And we're off to the races. And Drake Hatcher's pretty good against red decks since they often only run 2 damage burn spells. And then the 2/2 Drakes line up well against flying slick shots. Was kind of a mirror breaker in the Izzet decks. Hard Claw attacks. And do I feel compelled to maybe double block? Not really. Could block with a Drake and the hero. They might take out the hero before I get to untap. And yeah, there we see the Burst Lightning, which is unable to take out the Hatcher. Alrighty, so play another Planisphere, or I can equip another Planisphere onto the Hatcher first. Which I also don't mind. Don't think we need to Flood Maw just yet. So then we get a 3/5 Hatcher, once again threatening to make a Drake token. Opponent's gonna chump. But yeah, now 4 toughness is not the easiest for them to handle. And now that the Squelcher is gone, Flood Maw looks better. It's gonna be a second Hard Claw. Pretty good in multiples. Not gonna want to block in case of another Burst Lightning. But now the Flood Maw, especially if they pump Hard Claw, is going to be very effective. And so is Secret Identity. So do we have a lethal if I double Flood Maw? I mean, we are getting close either way. And yeah, opponent's just going to scoop it up here. Could bounce another Claw, and then Secret Identity, 3/4 mode on the Hatcher, and then we're gonna make 2 or 3 Drake tokens this turn cycle alone if they're not dead yet. So yeah, we got to see this blue prowess deck in action. Certainly not reinventing the wheel here, but the combination of Drake Hatcher with Secret Identity and the Planisphere, and then the whole Storm Chaser's Talent plus Boomerang Basics package plays very well. And now with all these unblockable cantrips, we can also make sure that the Drake Hatcher keeps connecting to make more Drakes. So yeah, overall, pretty happy with where this deck ended up. It's relatively budget-friendly, all things considered, and it seems to be ranking up pretty quickly as well. So it seems like a perfect deck for the current best of 1 ladder. So yeah, that's going to do it for today's gameplay. Want to thank you for watching, hope you enjoyed, and as always, have a nice day.